You're listening to Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair. For more information, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at SBT Songs, or check us out at chrisblair.com. What's up, everybody? This week, we've got Jordan Rowe on as our guest. Man, I loved this episode so much. It was so fun talking to Jordan about everything he's got going on. We talk about how he got to Nashville from Georgia. And then just shortly after that, just everything that's happened to him in a short time. We're going to dive into a song called Mama Ain't Jesus that he wrote with Lainey Wilson. Really cool story about that one. We're also going to dive into Good News Sold and Know You Like That he wrote for Jordan Davis. And then kind of what's happened with him recently and what he calls Kingdom Country and his shift into that, which led him out on the road with Ann Wilson. He actually just finished that tour he's going to talk about. And then he started this thing with burgers and baptisms. It's called Row Ministries. It happens every Wednesday right here in Nashville. And it's just a super cool story about how that's grown and what's happening right here on Music Row. Let's get to it. Here is Jordan Rowe. Well, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We are back here in Nashville with Jordan Rowe. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good, man. Thanks for joining today.
Thanks for having me.
Man, you've got so much cool stuff happening right now. You actually just got, you're not even, that's not even your guitar, because your guitar is on the bus from the tour you just ended with Ann Wilson.
Yes, we wrapped up 28 dates Sunday night, and I originally thought we were getting back Sunday, and it turns out we changed our flights to yesterday, and I had to tote some other stuff on the plane for people. So all of my jeans are on the bus somewhere between here and Oregon. My guitar, I literally left everything. So I'm borrowing Zach's guitar this morning.
I love it. Well, we're gonna dive into more on the tour and everything that's going on here in a little bit. But let's go back to the beginning. You're from Georgia. Mm-hmm. Let's dive into how you became such a huge Penn State fan.
I am not a Penn State fan. I told Zach he was the first Penn State fan I think I've met in person. I don't know any of it.
I had to do it, man. But, forgive me. I had to do
hilarious. But yeah, I'm go Dogs, man. Go Dogs.
Okay, so I'm not even gonna touch it. I'm just leave it alone. But how'd you get into music?
So, that's broad. I would say since I was about this tall, if you're listening on podcast, that's about 3 feet tall. I was singing in church. And playing the drums in church is how I got my start. Actually, that was my first instrument, and just grew up playing there. And then when I was about 13, I got into I would describe it as Christian Skinnerd, and I was the drummer for this band. And there were like 4 college guys, and then I was the drummer at like 13 years old. Wow. So I thought that was the coolest thing, right?
When did you start playing drums?
Like 8, 9,
okay,
somewhere in there.
Wow.
And so that was fun. That was kind of like the first time we actually like played shows and stuff.
Yeah.
Did that for a couple years, and loved playing live shows. And then picked up a guitar around that same time, around 13, 14, started playing guitar and like kind of dabbling with writing songs on my own. They were so bad back home now, I know that. But yeah, just kind of fell in love with that process and sang up through high school, then went to college, and that's when I really kind of fell in love with it and decided this was a viable path, if you will. Was in college about my sophomore year.
And you were at UGA, right?
At UGA, yeah. About sophomore year, I was playing, fraternity stuff, sorority things, and then I met Bradley Jordan, if you know Bradley, with Peachtree Entertainment. He lives in Athens, and he's a big promoter there. And me and him become friends, and he let me open my first real shows. And so that time, Riley Green was still coming through the theater. Muscadine Bloodline were playing down there a lot. Dylan Schneider, I think, was my first ever actual show at the 40 Watt, and I opened acoustic. And so I was just really opening acoustic around Athens, Atlanta, Valdosta, just kind of the Georgia circuit for a couple years. And then met songwriters up here through playing those venues, like Ray Fulcher.
They were coming to Georgia to play?
They were coming to Georgia.
Okay, yeah.
And so I would meet them there and, became friends with them and kind of started to see the actual path that maybe I can do this. Cause I had just planned to, like, that was always the dream to do music, but I didn't know anybody up here. I didn't know that it could actually be a path for me. So my plan was to go back and work in agriculture in South Georgia. And then about junior year, after I had met Ray and became friends, I called him up and I said, hey, I'm thinking about moving up there, but I want to know, how it works. Can I just come sleep on your couch for a summer and see how this is? And he's like, yeah, come on. And, long story short, spent that summer before senior year up here writing and fell in love with it. Knew I was going to move up here after college and moved up here when I graduated and still live with Ray. So it's just kind of a full circle thing now,
How was that change for you when you decided like, okay, I'm all in, I'm going to move?
It was scary. Because I grew up in a super small town. Athens was a huge town for me, so yeah, there was a lot of faith involved in that. And there were some really cool, like, I call them God winks, that confirmed that, for me, that I was supposed to move here, and that was cool, but it was definitely still scary.
Yeah.
Big change.
And what year was that?
That was, that I decided to move or actually moved?
Actually moved.
2019.
Okay.
So super weird time to move too, right? Because I moved here that summer and then, put out, my first EP, and that was in the fall. And then fast forward, I start playing a bunch of shows, and I think I was out with Chris Janson during, like, when COVID hit, like that January, February. And it was like the world shut down. And I had I signed a publishing deal the week of the COVID shutdown. Like, we were, going, this is back when they were all telling you, go get 2 weeks worth of groceries and this will all be over.
Right.
And so we were like, hey, can we take a signing picture or just wait 2 weeks till it's over? And, it was during that week. And, so that was weird because I signed a publishing deal and then for a year or more, I had to write on Zoom.
Yeah.
So it was crazy.
That's nuts. So, and you were, Riser House?
River House. That's where I was. It was half and half with them and tape room, and now I'm all tape room.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it like how was that process? Like, you were writing already before you got your deal, but just like, just to be able to, like, okay, I'm stuck at home for a year.
Yeah.
On Zoom, like, do you feel like you like the amount of songs that you were able to put out? Like, how did you feel like when when you finish a room, like when you're in the same room and you have that, like, that energy off of each other, right? And you finish a song and you're like, man, that was a great song. That feeling, everything's just different when you're staring at a screen, I think. So like, how was that process for you? Like, just writing online for a year?
It was definitely weird. There were pros and cons to it, obviously. For me, it was I feel like I got lucky that I hadn't done it in person for years before.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know how good that was. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, like, I didn't know the normal per se, so I didn't know how necessarily hard Zoom writing was.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So I would say it wasn't that hard for me because that's kind of all I knew at that point. But it was weird because you're sitting there and I kind of got to meet the town through a computer screen, the town of writers, and I knew a good handful of writers in person and had written with them. But, a lot of people, that first publishing deal you're writing with new people almost every day, trying to find your crew. And so it was so intimidating being, across the screen from guys like, I remember, writing with Neil Thrasher the first time. And I was actually on a fishing trip in Florida, and I'm sitting down there with halfway service on a dock, which was awesome, writing with a song with Neil Thrasher. But I'm like, I haven't even shook this guy's hand, and I've got to say hey for 5 minutes and then try to create art over FaceTime, basically. Yeah. And it was so weird.
Yeah. It's tough.
But it was cool. It was really a really good time because you got to, slow down and spend a lot of family time and spend a lot of time, learning the craft before it opened back up. And so it kind of prepared me in a way that when it did open back up and we could go in person, you kind of had a leg up.
Yeah. Let's dive into that. Cause I mean, you got all of 2020 basically to work on you. And then you put your debut album out in 21. So, let's start diving into, that and the story behind some of your songs.
Yeah. So, let's see, 2021, I think it was August. I put out that first project, and that was called Bad Case of the Good Old Boy. And that was a project where I was still very much green as grass, learning who I was. And you can hear a couple songs on there that now I'm going back to that well with what I'm doing now with the Kingdom Country stuff, like Mom Ain't Jesus.
Yeah.
Which you want me to play some of that? And
Yeah,
tell you that story?
Tell me, take me into the room, because you've got a cool story about that song.
Yeah.
So let's dive into
that one. It's so funny because I tell a story on stage every time and they always laugh. But so this was back before Lainey is winning them all. And Lainey Wilson, and there were probably 15, 20 of us songwriter friends over at her house, and we had a bonfire going. And we're just hanging out watching one of the award shows. And so I don't remember if it was probably the CMAs because it was cold, but it's like 10 o'clock at night and my mom calls and I was like, is something wrong? It's so late. She called. And so I go outside and take the call. She just wanted to talk. And I guess I'm out there longer than I thought I was. I come back in the house and I'm standing in the kitchen and you can hear Lainey say this, but she looks at me and goes, "Dang, boy, who are you on the phone with, Jesus?" And I said, "No, it was Mama, but she's a close second." And, I just said the hook. And she and I look at each other and we're like, because there's 15 other songwriters in the kitchen, right? But we're like, that's a cool idea. And so we're like texting each other across the kitchen, like, don't say that out loud again, but we're going to write this next week. And so we got together the next week and wrote it, just the two of us. And it was honestly, man, one of the fastest songs that I've ever written.
When you say that, what does that mean? Like how long?
Oh, probably maybe less than an hour, right at it.
That's fast.
And it was wild, man. It really was like we had some help from the Lord on that one. And it was just so, all we had to do was talk about how awesome our moms are. Yeah. And, we've got two of the best. And it was really, really a cool experience. And she and I got to put it out together. And, I think in August of 21 it came out, and it's still one of those songs I feel like has some juice left in the squeeze. Yeah. And it now really fits into the Kingdom Country thing I'm doing, which I'll talk about later. But yeah, that was kind of the story with it.
What was the reaction from your mom when she first heard the song?
Oh, she was crying. She cried. I cried. It was, it was like one of the fake TikTok videos, but it was actually real.
Yeah. This actually happened. It wasn't staged.
It actually, it was actually happened. It was not, hey, this is my first time hearing this song. It was like, no, you've heard it 50 times.
Yeah. Well, let's hear it.
All right. Let's see. Yeah. She's a giver of another chance, knows every hair on my hard head. She'll give you anything, all you gotta do is ask. So where she knew everything I did, that Bible's gone with her everywhere she's been. You hardly ever see it, but you don't wanna see her mad. She's holding it down here, all woman when she gets up there. I bet she'll walk them streets of gold with a silver medal. And while the good Lord comes back down to get us, she'll fill in. I ain't been yet, but I've got a glimpse of heaven. 'Cause Mama ain't Jesus, but she's a close second. love it.
Mama Ain't Jesus. I love it, man.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, was that just one of those that when you finished, you just knew?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And some of them are like that. Most of them, you get done and you're like, another song. You know what I mean? But every now and then you finish one, you're like, we got one today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the best feeling.
It is.
Yeah.
Let's move into Jordan Davis.
All right.
You've done a couple things with Jordan, or had songs cut by Jordan. So, walk through that.
So that was a crazy process. And I'll tell you this whole story to encourage any young writer out there listening.
Yeah.
But so he was my first major cut. And song came out this past February, but we actually wrote that song December of 2021. And it was a couple things in this story. One, we wrote it late December. Most of the town's already quit by then. So that was one big thing. I remember us talking about it that day. Is like, hey, because we almost rescheduled. We almost just, hey, it's the end of the year. Let's just get together next year. I remember us talking about it like, no, let's write today because the rest of the town's quit. So we've got, our odds are better. So that's one thing I would say is work when nobody else is. But we wrote that song late December of 2021, and immediately one of the guys texted it to another artist who put it on hold and was like, don't play this for anybody else. I'm doing this, And so I was fired up. Like that was going to be my first one. And it was on hold basically from then until the following October. And, I was invited to the studio to watch it be cut. It was going to be cut, October 4th, which I thought was cool. It was like 10-4. And then they didn't do it. And I was just so bummed out, man. And, but then a couple weeks go by and it's put on hold by Jordan, like Thanksgiving-ish of, 2022, I guess that would have been.
Yeah.
I might get that wrong, but anyways, and so it's on hold another long, long time. And I'm like, I'm kind of thinking,
welcome to the music industry.
Yeah, I'm thinking the song's dead, to be honest with you. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we find out like, hey, this is coming out in 3 weeks. And I was just blown away, man. And it was really, really cool. I was very, very thankful. And that came out in February. That was my first cut ever. And then he just released another one, that I wrote with Ray Fulcher, Michael Tyler, Thomas Archer, called Know You Like That. And that was encouraging because that was a true outside song. Like us three had gotten together to finish another song at 9 a.m. one morning. We finished that song and we stood up to walk out of the room and somebody was just talking about an old girlfriend or something. I don't remember. And said something similar to the hook. We literally can't even remember who said the hook. We were talking about it the other day, but somebody said something that made us sit back down and go like, hold up, we're not leaving. We're about to write another one. We got to figure out what this is. So we sit down, write that, got a outside demo made, and it was a publisher pitch. Roxy over at Universal pitched it to his A&R, and it got cut and released, which is like unheard of in today's world. So let that be an encouragement. If you're a writer out there, for sure that it still does happen. Yeah.
I had a similar experience happen. I was writing with AJ Cross and Jason Duke, and we wrote a great song over at Sony. This is a couple years ago. And the same thing. I had a meeting to go to, and they had another write with them and Casey Timmer and
I love Casey.
And it was one of those moments where I stuck around and I almost didn't. And that song, that next one that we wrote, was the one that ended up getting released by AJ. Like a year later. So it was like those moments where you think you're done and you get that tug and pay attention to it.
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
So Good News Sold, Cole Taylor and Jacob.
Yep.
So was that another one of those quick writes?
It kind of was. I think that I remember that one being pretty fast. It wasn't as fast as Mama Ain't Jesus, but I do remember, which Cole, we always write fast together no matter what. But I feel like that one was probably, hour and a half maybe.
Yeah.
And it was, it's different for everybody, but I've learned, at least for me, the good ones usually come faster. It's usually not a 6-hour long ordeal.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm having to, pull teeth to finish it, it's usually not that good for me.
Yeah.
I know it's different for everybody, but so most of them are, if they're worth anything,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to play a little bit of that one?
Yeah, I'll play a little bit of that one. And this was, and I remember, I mean, it's even more prevalent now, but the story behind this one was, it was back then, there were so many, like, just bad things in the news every day. And we were tired of it. And we were like, let's write one that, if Good News sold, if that was on the TV, what would it look like? And so that was what this one's about. You'd see a little boy hugging on a black lab, 'cause after 2 weeks it came back home. Lady going through stage 4, saying thank you Lord, 'cause the cancer's gone. A couple seeing 2 pink lines for the first time after trying for a while. Wouldn't be too hard to find a smile if good news sold. The world wouldn't seem so bad if good news sold, and we'd be buying everything they had, and we'd all sleep a little bit better at night, and all be a little less left and right, and turning the TV on and checking your phone wouldn't ever get old if good news sold. Some of that one.
Yeah, man. It's such a great song. And you're
Thank
right.
you,
It's so prevalent for what's going on in our world
Yeah.
today. And thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
Yeah. This episode is brought to you by Sennheiser microphones. When we first started this podcast, we were using some older microphones, and Sennheiser came in and sponsored us and gave us some MK4s and 914s. And I mean, I'm telling you, it's made all of the difference in the world. We love these microphones. We use them at the listening room as well. And I just can't say enough great things about them. Go check out Sennheiser.com. If you are into music in any way, their microphones are hands down the best on the planet. Go check them out, Sennheiser.com. And thank you, Sennheiser, for the support and the sponsorship. We love y'all. Let's shift a little bit into, you mentioned earlier, but the Kingdom Country stuff that you're doing right now, man, is just so cool.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Thank you. So, and I just want to tell you the story behind that.
Yeah.
It's like my favorite story to tell.
Please. Yeah.
So long story short, like I say, I put out Bad Case, Good Old Boy in 2021, that fall. And shortly after, there was a lot, we won't get into all this, but there's a lot that went down that made me realize I'm not where I need to be. I'm not doing the music I need to do. This just isn't right. And fast forward, and I got a lot of cool opportunities early on. Like we were getting cool features, cool shows, just putting out a bunch of music, but it wasn't right. And
can I dive into that a little bit? Like, what do you mean when you say it wasn't right?
I knew in my heart that I was supposed to do Kingdom Country.
Yeah.
But I was green as grass, and I was not rooted enough to say no.
Okay.
To outside influences as far as like what songs to put out and, how to act and all that stuff. And so, it was just, I was becoming an artist that I was never meant to be. Long story short. And there were some, other things with, management situations and all of that I won't get into, but, I knew this is not right. This is not where I'm supposed to be or what I'm supposed to do. And I just knew that in my heart. And sure enough, as quickly as all that cool stuff came, just like that, it all went away. And I realized, you know, God has done this for a reason, and he has shut it down for a reason to get it back on the right path, or so I hope. And that was in fall of 2022, that I don't have any shows coming in. I don't have, most of my team went away, right? And it felt like nothing was going on. And it was just this, just dead space. And my whole life felt like a question mark. And I was, you know, just really trying to figure out directionally what I was supposed to do next. And as crazy as it was like in this season where I'm grasping at straws career-wise to figure out, to make something happen. I felt the Lord calling me to start what is now Music Row Ministries. And now Music Row Ministries is a weekly Bible study there at Sony, music publishing. And if you are listening, if you are in the music industry in any capacity, songwriter, management, booking agent, photographer, player, literally anything, it's for you. And we have a men's group and a women's group that meets weekly at Sony. And it's really turned into something cool. But at the time, I was like, whoa, that's new. You know, I was coming up with any excuse I could to tell God, like, no, that is not for me. You know, like, I don't know enough about the Bible to start this. You know, that's going to take away from music. I mean, I'm like Moses when God tells Moses to go free his people, he gives God like 5 excuses. Well, that was me. I was coming up with every excuse I could to say no to this. And that went on for about 5 or 6 months. And it scared me to death, the thought of doing that. But I learned that God does not take no for an answer. And so finally say yes to that. And we started it February of 2023.
Yeah.
And still, it feels like nothing is going on with music, man. And I'm coming up on my last option of my publishing deal in March. And I'm like, I don't know what's about to happen in my life right now. Like, am I going to have to move back to Georgia? Like, what is going on? And at this point, like I said, no cuts yet, nothing. And so over that year, Music Row Ministries was really blessed. And it was crazy because in that area, I could see God's hand all over it. And we were baptizing guys in horse troughs in the Sony parking lot, and it was growing and it was awesome. But over here in music, it felt like nothing was going on still. And it made me start to go, maybe the artist thing was put in my heart just to get me to move here, but maybe I'm just supposed to do this, you know, and lead this and write for other people or something. And so I'm wondering that if I'm even supposed to be an artist anymore. And so I start praying about that. Like I said, nothing's still going on in music. I don't even have a cut yet. And I'm so desperate to hear from the Lord by this January. So this is January of this year, of 2024 I'm talking about, that I try something I've never done before. And that was a 3-day prayer fast. And I'm from Southern Baptist Church in Adel, Georgia. Like, we don't really talk about prayer fasting a whole lot, but, and it's awesome. I love that church, but it was just something I had never experienced or tried. But I was like, I've got to do anything I can to hear from the Lord and get some direction on my life. And so I tried it. Some really, really cool things happened, during that experience that I've never experienced before. And during that 3 days, I prayed for, if I'm supposed to be an artist anymore, like, I'm okay with that. I'd love to be. But if not, I've come to terms with it. That's okay too. But you got to let me know. Like, I'm tired of just hitting my head on the wall here.
Yeah.
And, you know, if there's any piece of my team that's not supposed to be here anymore, please close the door on that. You know, I'm tired of wondering that. And I still had my booking agent. And now I hadn't played a show in over a year, but I still had a booking agent. And I kid you not, man, day 4. So the day after that prayer fast, I got dropped by that agent at the Well on 16th Avenue, little coffee shop.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I know who did that. But I still didn't know. I'm like, that doesn't tell me if I'm supposed to be an artist or not. That looks like I'm not, right?
Yeah.
But man, that prayer fast was a catalyst for everything that happened this year. So that was in January. The next day I get dropped by my booking agent. A couple weeks after that, we get the call out of the blue that Jordan is going to put out Good News Sold. And so that gives me my first cut the week that we were talking about re-signing my option or not with Tape Room.
Yeah.
And then, a long guy story short, a couple months later, I get asked to go out on the tour with Lainey Wilson, which was my first ever full-length tour, sitting at the same table at the same coffee shop that I got dropped by my booking agent.
Mm.
And it was just, I was just floored by the Lord's blessing this year. And it was, through that process of that prayer fast, and then like from really January to April, I knew through various confirmations and just different things and conversations that happened and just prayer that I'm supposed to do Kingdom Country now. And it was always in there, like I said, with like Mama Ain't Jesus and stuff. That's what I always was drawn to. That's the songs I love. But I know I'm supposed to do Kingdom Country. And if you're going, what is Kingdom Country? It's country music, but it just talks about your faith more. It's country music that you can play for your kids on the way to school, and you don't have to worry about what they're going to hear. It's just, it's faith, family, life, friends, hunting, fishing, but, and it's like, it's just not what I call hookup country. And so that's, the direction I'm going now. And it's kind of uncharted territory, but it's, God's been so faithful this year, and, I don't know what it's going to look like in the future, but there's finally some, direction to it. And it's awesome. So we're just seeing what happens next.
Man, isn't it so great how when you just open your arms up and be still and listen, what can come out of that?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. That was the thing, was when I first got here, I was so busy that I couldn't hear from the Lord and what I was really supposed to do.
Yeah.
And especially in today's age, it can happen quickly. It's just such a fast-paced world.
Yeah. I want to go back to the music Row Ministries in a little bit, but before we get there, let's stay on this track because I want to dive into like first time touring. Mm-hmm. You're out with Lainey Wilson, and you're borrowing a guitar right now because that's not made it home yet. Yeah. Like, how crazy is that, man? Like, she's incredible.
Yeah, she was awesome. It was a really, really fun tour. And that was like, I had toured a lot before, but never a full length tour. Yeah. It was always like, 3 weekends here or a one-off for this person. You can never get in a groove. And so it was really cool to be in a groove from September through November and, get in a routine and sharpen the show and like, really figure it out. It was really, really cool experience. And her whole crew was great, man. I mean, yesterday it was, at the end of a tour, it's bittersweet. Like, you are ready to have a warm shower in your own house and like sleep in your own bed. Yeah. But also it was so bittersweet because, the crew was so awesome. Like, I'm going to miss all of them. And, it was great, man. But so she's kind of doing something similar to, crossing over from Christian to country. And so it was the perfect fit, for what I've done this year. You could not ask for a better, tour to get on. Yeah. And so it was cool to see the Kingdom Country stuff connect with an actual audience and kind of know that, okay, this is a thing. And her fans were awesome. And, we did mostly old theaters and, just really, really pretty old theaters. Most of them were built in like the 30s. Yeah. And we started out in Oklahoma and just made basically a big circle and around the whole country, ended up in Oregon. So saw a lot of things I've never seen.
What would you say like your favorite part of that tour was?
Oh man. Favorite show would have to be the Ryman. Just obvious reasons. Yeah. Like, that's bucket list. That was really special. Coolest city maybe was San Diego, and that was really, really fun town. We got to go see the zoo. It was awesome. And then best food. It was really, really great. But then as far as like just favorite part, like I say, it was getting to play songs that you're anxious about playing, because the Kingdom Country stuff, it's like, how is this going to go over, right? To see it connect with fans, that was really, really cool.
Yeah.
And then just the hang, the people we were out with, it was just a good time to, it just felt like what music's supposed to feel like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As weird as that sounds.
Did you, were you like really busy, or did you have enough downtime where you got to write some good songs out there too?
Dude, I never got to write. No. Well, I'll tell you that back. I wrote like one, but, and I love to write on the road, but I was really busy because right now, I still don't officially have a manager or a tour manager or an agent or anything. So I was doing, wearing all the hats, filling all the shoes out there, keeping up with the merch and everything, advancing.
It's a lot, bro.
It's a lot. It's a lot. But yeah, I wish I could
have find somebody in your band to be your TM.
Yeah. But we were duo acoustic, and is what they requested, and so it was just me and Tyler Hicks, my guitar player. We were out there, just us, which was awesome because we got to just ride the crew bus. So that took a lot of logistics off. That was a big blessing. But yeah, I grew up a lot, responsibility wise for sure.
So you didn't get to sit down and write one with Ann?
No, but we
get your phone out. Call her and speakerphone right now. We're gonna fix this right now.
Yeah, she's not a big writer on the road. Yeah, when we talked about it, and she does doesn't like to ride on the road for preserving her voice and things like that. Yeah. But we talked about it, and we're gonna write back here in Nashville. So
I love it.
Yeah, which I love writing. Like I would write 3 songs and then go play a show. Yeah. But yeah.
What's next for you and your career in touring? Anything on the horizon?
We've got a couple things next year, but really the focus now between now and the end of the year is I've been having a lot of management conversations, and it's getting that nailed down.
Yeah.
Looking at knock on wood, getting a deal figured out, and then getting the agent figured out after that. That's kind of part 3. So my focus between now and the end of the year is building the team, getting that, the pieces are coming together, but getting that, finalized so that we can get a plan going into 2025. And I would love to, go play a bunch of shows in the fall. I know it's late on the spring, but hopefully we can get out there a bunch in the summer and fall.
I love it.
So
very cool. Let's go back to Row Ministries. Because I want everybody to kind of understand a little bit more of what that is, more so than a Bible study. Because the phrase burgers and baptisms kind of came out of that, and it's so cool. And I've seen not seen by being there, but seen and heard the stories from great friends. I told you earlier, I found out about what you're doing through Justin Wilson. When we were down in St. Augustine, and he all the pictures of him and so many other buddies like him that got baptized in a horse trough in the parking lot. And number one, I've said this on other episodes. It's not a secret how I feel about Rusty Gaston at Sony. He's we're both elders together in our church, and he is just his passion for songwriters and what he does as a career is amazing in itself, right? But the love that he has for Jesus and pouring into the writers in the way that he does is just something that I think is so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I know that's a big piece of it. You're using the Sony building and the Sony parking lot. So talk about, like, you mentioned like how that idea just kept turning inside of you and you kept trying to say no. What was it like when you finally gave in and was like, okay, I'm going to do this? did you talk to Rusty, Josh? Like, what was the steps after that to kind of blow that thing up?
So, like I say, it was kind of like internal conversation with me for like 5 or 6 months of knowing I'm supposed to do this, but going, well, and I'm a perfectionist by nature. And so like I'm in my head trying to figure out what is what are all the details that we've got to figure out. And I was trying to figure out all on my own. And I finally realized, like, just let God do his thing and just say yes. So I'm like, okay, how do we do that? Well, I'm on a duck hunt trip with my pastor, Jason Cruz, in Mississippi. And we're sitting in a duck blind one morning. It's slow. We've killed like 2. And I'm like, man, I got to tell you about this idea. What do you think about this? And so I'm like, that's the vision. I think I'm supposed to start this thing. And the vision is a weekly Bible study for people in the music industry, like Christian community. There's no really, that I know of, no really community within the songwriter networks or the music industry at all. And basically just want us to get together. It be real, authentic, grow in the word. I'm just spitballing all these things. I was like, how do I make this happen? Like, let's figure this out. And so we literally sat in a duck blind in Mississippi and talked through what it could look like. And when we got back to Nashville, I went to lunch with him and came up with a plan for a first meeting. And in the first meeting, it really wasn't a devotion necessarily. It was blueprinting the whole thing. And so I asked Rusty, I said, hey, do you care if I start like a men's small group in the fire hall? And he's like, absolutely, go for it. And which is so cool. And we'll come back to Rusty. And so I literally texted 100 songwriters, probably every dude I could think of, and said, hey, I'm starting a Bible study in the fire hall on Wednesday. This is the vision behind it. Would love for you to be there. And I'm expecting maybe 5 people to show up, and we might have had 10. And so I'm like, all right, that's the start. And I have 5 questions prepared, and I think we made it through 3 of them. And it was the wildest thing, because one was, what is your single biggest challenge in your life right now? And we went around the room, and man, there were dudes like crying, getting stuff out off their chest. And it was wild. And we said, what's your single biggest challenge? And the point of that was to get to know what topics we should cover. And then we said, all right, it's February. Let's pretend that we've been consistent all year. You're back home in December for Christmas. Somebody says, what's going on in Nashville? And you answer them by going, there's this new cool thing called Row Ministries. I'm going there and I love it because of this. Like, what would this have to look like to make you answer it in that way? And so what we came up with was just, vulnerability, realness, rawness, no topics off limits, like just talking about the hard stuff. And we made it through like 2 or 3 of those questions, and consistency was the key there. And we started off meeting, and we had like I said, 10 maybe that first time. And then there were a couple months where it dwindled down. We might have 6 or 7. And I was like, let's just keep showing up. And anyways, I'm like, we had a couple guys that want to get baptized. I was like, let's do this in a cool way. And one of the things about that group is it's not very churchy, and it's that way on purpose. We want it to look like the Book of Acts church, not retail Christianity. And so we tried to make it super pavement level. And we're like, let's just have a tailgate with cornhole and country music going. I'll go get a Tractor Supply horse trough. We'll grill out and baptize guys in the parking lot. Nothing wrong with that. And so I asked Rusty, can we do a burgers and baptism event in the parking lot? And he was like, yeah, whatever you need, go for it. Like, he'd never asked questions about it. And I just want to give a shout out to him, because his bold leadership is so cool. And it is by no accident that God has put him in that position, because how many CEOs of Sony Music would say, hey, yeah, you can use my parking lot to baptize guys. And by the way, when we do it, take the heat from the people who don't like it. And I mean, take it well.
Yeah.
And stand up for us. And so, you know, I can't believe, you know, that we're able to do that. And it's just been like God's protection over that the hammer hasn't come down from New York or something on it. And so I very much respect him for standing up for us. And,
do you know that when he accepted that position and was going to be starting as the new CEO, before he even stepped into that building on his first day of actual work, he hooked up with the janitor that had the keys to the building, and he got let into the building, and he walked around that building and he prayed
wow,
that he would be able to touch everyone that comes into that building, from the janitor all the way to the top, and the songwriters. Awesome. And like, that's how he started before day one.
That's awesome.
That's the kind of guy he is.
Does not surprise me.
Yeah.
That is awesome, man. Yeah, so, and I know I got to wrap up, but he said yes to burgers and baptisms. I think we baptized 3 guys that day. And that was on a Tuesday afternoon. And we met the next morning, and we had about 50 or 60 dudes there. And we were like, whoa.
Were you freaking out?
Yeah, I was.
I don't have enough questions prepared.
Yeah, so, but anyways, it was really, really cool. And right after that, I felt like it was supposed to be a women's group too. And I'm like, send the right girl to lead this. And sure enough, like, a girl texts me, I don't even know. She goes, hey, I got your number from Sarah Turner, another writer, Jameson Rogers' wife. And she's like, I feel like I'm supposed to lead a women's version of what you're doing. And I'm like, yes, you are. Let's go get coffee. And so now they meet on Tuesdays. The men's group meets on Wednesdays. And we just had our second Burgers and Baptisms event, baptized 4 more. And I love it, man. It's been awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that, man. I know it's touched so many people. And Zach, who books everybody here, I think he goes just about every week.
Yeah.
And
Zach's the man.
Really cool. So
it's been awesome. Yeah.
And thanks for sharing your story, dude. Just so cool to hear. I love the path that you're going down with Kingdom Country, and just I can see it in your face, just how passionate you are that you get to do and chase like what you believe in and what you want.
Yeah.
And it makes a difference.
Yeah, it does, man. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's awesome. This is my favorite place to play in town. So
thanks, man.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
Before we finish, just final question. If you can go back to 8-year-old you in Georgia, knowing what you know now and what you've learned, I always end with this. What advice do you give yourself at 8 years?
Man, that's a tough one. I would say have more trust in the Lord. Don't fear the future. And have fun. Play free. Play to win, not to lose. Yeah.
That's great.
That's what I'd say.
Thanks for sharing, man.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
And thank you, everybody out there listening. We will put liner notes to all Jordan's music and socials and all of that, so you can check that out and keep up with him and go see him on tour. Yeah. It's going to be fun.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thanks. Enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening. My name is Chris Blair. You've been listening to Stories Behind the Songs with Jordan Rowe, and we will see you next time. Thank you for listening to another episode of Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair. Make sure to give us a follow on Spotify if you enjoyed this episode, and make sure you click that notification button so you can keep notified when new episodes come out. We release brand new episodes every Tuesday, and you can find us on YouTube at Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to send us a comment letting us know what you thought of the episodes. We love getting your feedback, and share this with your friends. The more we grow, the more that we can keep doing this. It's our mission to bring you all of these great stories behind the songs from some of Nashville's most iconic artists and songwriters, publishers, producers, everyone in between, and a lot of my great friends. We love what we do, and we love sharing their stories with you. We appreciate all of the continued support. Thanks also to all of our sponsors, and we will see you all next week.